Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, digesting another episode of Big 12 wins we won't apologize for.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet only $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. So download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you, kicking off another week and doing it once again. Become an old habit as we're riding a bit of a hot streak after another win. Red Raiders get it done on a Sunday from United Supermarkets Arena. You avoid the trap. And as you said to me following the basketball game, the baby may not have been the handsomest, but the baby arrived healthy, delivered, wrapped up as a W. And we're not, again, on this podcast, going to be the ones to apologize for that. So was not without some adventure, but Tech survives a Sunday against Oklahoma State.
Yeah, this game film not going to be sent to Springfield, Mass. With the home of the Basketball Hall of Fame, as we have stated on occasion before. You kind of could see this coming, or the potential for this. I mean, you're heavy home favorite, and non-traditional day, just kind of weird, right? And everybody's you kind of been rolling a bit. They've been struggling, talking about Oklahoma State, and then you're sitting there with I think like 9:27 to go, and it's 51-33, and you're like, yeah, what's all that? What's all that talk about trap game? Come on. But it didn't look particularly great up until that point. You just had kind of kept doing your thing, and Oklahoma State kind of struggling a little bit. And then all of a sudden, Big 12 basketball rears its ugly head and is like, hey, remember, it's a pretty good league. Like there's dudes and real coaches in this thing, and I think a 16-1 run later, and you're like going, this is getting a bit tight here, and I don't know if you ever felt like you were in jeopardy of losing. Then one of your better or best players limps to the tunnel, and he finishes out the game on the bench with 8 to go. It all equaled a double-digit win, and we'll get to how we got to that point throughout the show, but this one was just not easy on the eyes, and yet, as you said, man, we love all of our children equally, and some of them are prettier than others, and some of them are smarter than others, and some of them are less knuckleheaded than others, and all that. But we still all love them equally, and I'll love this win just as much as some of the others. But it just took a bit to get there.
Yeah, you think of Larry, Moe, and Curly, and even Curly had a mother that loved him. So forget about it.
Yeah.
At the end of this thing, we're looking back, say in March or so, you'll just think about a win on a Sunday for the Red Raiders. But I got to admit, like you were touching on there, you get to a portion further on into the game and you're extending the lead, and I'm thinking, all right, well, you're gonna take care of business and you're gonna win this as you should, and you eventually really do, whether you cover or not. You get to a double-digit final result, and I'm going to go ahead and consider that you taking care of business in this situation against a team like Oklahoma State. And maybe we just credit the Cowboys for not going down without a last gasp down the stretch, but certainly was made a little bit more interesting. But, Chris, rolling into this, you tell me from a numbers standpoint that you get what you get, which is what? Single, uno, solo act as far as double-digit scoring is concerned. For the good guys, and I'm thinking, all right, well, we're going to be down a tough road to hoe, but it really didn't even feel like that as the game went on. But you kind of look back at what you did offensively, and wow, you kind of figure maybe you were fortunate to survive in the way that you did.
Yeah, all 8 players scored in the first half, and you obviously had just the one double-digit score, and then you had let's see here as I look at it, Elijah Hawkins had 3. Everybody else had 6 or more. I mean, 9 for Anderson, 7 for Overton, 8 for Federico, and all that, and then your starters. JT Toppin was the weird one because he just had. I mean, you and I had 0 rebounds on Sunday's game, but JT Toppin just had the 1, so he had 1 more rebound than you and I did, and he was just kind of taken out of the game or just a non-factor. They doubled him. And so he's obviously one of your best scorers, and they were trying to take the ball out of his hands, or they were trying to see from early on, okay, when they throw it on a post ISO and he's dribbling down, they're trying to send that other defender, and let's just see how good of a passer he is. They were trying to make him kick it out, which is just going to start to happen more and more as teams just don't necessarily want to let him go to work in a one-on-one scenario. They're going to send a double team and see if he'll turn it over. And he did at times. And I think that this was good defensive strategy, but he's as reliant of a double-digit score as you've got. And then Darrion Williams obviously didn't play the last, 6 to 8 minutes of the game. I can't remember exactly when he checked out and limped to the tunnel and whatnot, but he only has 9. Chance McMillan, though, most of his damage done in the first. He had 11 points right out of the gate, and then was held to 3 large in part for the rest of the game from then on. So yeah, it was just a grind. And I do credit Oklahoma State. I did not think that they called it consistently. I thought Oklahoma State was really allowed to be very physical and handsy. I even mentioned this on the broadcast. I said that on the air. It felt like a lot like a West Virginia type of game where they're just going to push and shove and get real handsy. And they're not calling it every time. And yet when that's allowed to go on, and then you start calling some ticky-tack stuff to kind of even it up at the end, yeah, I have a hard time with that. I like consistency. But they played hard, but they were allowed to play very physical. And that's what led into, I think, you struggling a bit, and you didn't deal with it, I guess, very, very well.
Yeah, at different times. I mean, there were portions where obviously you would have a stretch where you felt like you were really getting into the pocket, but and that can just be a basketball game too, a game of runs, but that would come to an end. But you found a way to respond, and you hang on at the end of the day. And I say hang on, and I'm still thinking about a 10-point score. So probably felt a little more dramatic to a Tech fan than it actually was as far as the game is concerned. But I think we were justifiably wary of what this Sunday could present as far as the matchup. But nonetheless, you get on. And you get on to another opportunity that you want to take advantage of. We'll get to it coming up in just a moment with what's coming up from United Supermarkets Arena before you leave the friendly confines. But I'm kind of wondering, Chris, as we now process what we saw against Oklahoma State and you combine that to what you've seen in some recent outings as well, there have been different vibes to these games as far as like, wow, are you really geared towards what you can do offensively as a team? And we've even talked about, historically within what Grant McCaslin has put on the floor from an offensive standpoint. Is this one of the best that he's ever had, or maybe the best arguably statistically that he's ever had? So there have been those moments as well, but there's also been back to that kind of grind that we've got to describe here where you've also found some success. So is your identity one way or another? Like, hey, we're more geared towards this when we're geared towards something offensive. Is your identity a versatile one that we can wear many hats? Do you feel like we're getting to know maybe what Texas Tech actually is yet, or is it too early to tell?
I'll tell you what I think you are.
First, today's episode brought to you by TurboTax. Texas was dealing with piles of paperwork and frustrating forms, and then waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back. Now Texas is easily uploading your forms to a TurboTax expert who's matched to your unique tax situation, an expert who's backed by the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points for 100% accuracy. And while they work on your taxes, you get real-time updates on their progress, and you get the most money back guaranteed. And while you go about your day, it's all happening with no stressing, no worrying, and no waiting. Now, this is taxes with Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees.
Tell you what I think you are, and we are seeing bracketology, and you're seeing where you're going to be seated already. We're seeing all these things. Everybody is about the sport. Now that football is over with, NFL is winding down, and all these things. And yet you do have to remind yourself, we got 6 or 7 weeks left, folks. You start trying to project where somebody's going to be seated in the NCAA tournament, it could change a gazillion times. I mean, gazillion may be a bit of a stretch, but you know what I mean.
20-game conference schedule, people.
Yes, and you're not even at the turn yet. And then you've got conference tournament, you've got injuries to factor in, all that stuff. But so I say all that to offer up that I don't want to make too many big picture statements because, again, there's so much to go. However, I do think what I think you're starting to see is that you're a figure it out or find a way type team. And you're kind of a chameleon. I think if you need to outscore or if you need to grind it out, but because that's the way, some of the best teams that have come through here in the last 6 to 8 years, when you've kind of really turned this thing around, they have the ability to do a variety of different things and win games in different ways. I don't know if you're the best at outscoring anybody out there. I certainly don't think you are the best at grinding it out and winning a rock fight to where you got to grind one out into the 40s or 50s. But you are, whatever is asked for, you are figuring out ways to get to the end with a result. And that's really all that matters. So I do think that at times you can be one or the other, and at times it's a mix. I think at Cincinnati the other day, I do think your offense is a bit on display that night. But there's a level of your defense that's, because you went into the Cincinnati game and nobody had scored a point on you in the last 5 minutes of your 2 previous games. What are we doing there? That's insanity.
Yeah, that's all right.
In this league. But I don't sit here and think you're not what Houston or Iowa State can trot out there night in and night out on defense. You're not. But I do think that you are a bit versatile, and there's a chameleon aspect to you to where you can kind of, turn it on and do some different things and win in different ways. And that's what I think we are starting to see, which again is a sign of a good team. So I think it's not just one end of the floor that is carrying you to victory. You've got different things about you that can get you to where you want to go.
Yeah, I think the best case scenario, if those are the possibilities, is always that, hey, we're just versatile and we've got many ways to win. That's what you would love to be. Whether or not that settles down to be the reality, time will reveal. But, as far as some trend lines and things like that, can't go beyond another game where I'm thinking about Darrion Williams and just kind of an interesting, stretch as you combine it all. And then you think about the most recent outings. You think about what I believe we have been very quick to mention on just about every episode when we talk D5, which was a game-sealing effort not too long ago as well by him when he takes over down the stretch. So obviously we remember what he's capable of. It has been a tough little stretch here, and kind of like, I guess, for some other aspects of the game against Oklahoma State, was just kind of a weird feel to the way that his day ebbed and flowed. But how are we feeling about Darrion Williams as we're wrapping up January and getting a little further into the schedule?
Well, he's just clearly not healthy. And heck, I guess that's the question going into Wednesday is what is his status? Grant told me after the game when we were talking on the interview for post game, I just said, hey, you had to play the end of this game the last 6 to 8 minutes without him. How much did that affect things? And is he okay? And he said, I think he's fine, but he wasn't good enough to go back in there. And so he's not necessarily fine, but you know what I'm saying. It's not like it was some, and then, Haxton and I were doing post game on the radio and, yesterday and you see him down there smiling, taking a picture with Robert Jennings. well after the game was over. And so I'm going to assume that he'll be okay. But I think the point is, I don't think he's fine. He's not.
And this has been traced back to previous games. I mean,
Yep.
This is something that's been
just nagging. I think he's like, Dirk Nowitzki used to have like, ankle issues, and they were like normal. Like he just had loose ankles and just dealt with them. And I don't know if that's what D5 is dealing with, where it's just kind of like they're rubber, and it's just like you turn it and it's like, this sucks. But I'll be good to go. I'll play through it.
If he handles them like Dirk, I mean, that was like superhuman injury timeline.
Exactly.
When Dirk was doing it.
Exactly. So I'm guessing those ligaments are a bit loose since it's been turned a bit. Who knows? And this is where, now that this was a game on a Sunday, and now we're sitting here talking on a Monday, and you're turning right around on a Wednesday night with probably a much better TCU team. I say much better, just better. I don't know how just worlds better, but you will need Darrion Williams, and he'll need to get that thing on some ice and all that, which I'm sure he has. But yeah, I just don't think he's right now, and I think that he's been dealing with this for now what feels like a couple of weeks. And my fear is this just what you're going to deal with? There's no time for him to call timeout and go, right. Hey, can y'all give me a week or two, and just so I can get back. That does not exist, and so I just hope that this isn't, because I mean, think about how many games he hasn't finished in recent weeks. I think he hasn't finished 3 games out of your last 4 or 5. I mean, and the one game he did finish is what you're talking about, which is the one in Kansas State where he hit the shot, but that was one of the ones where he was like, you thought, oh no. I mean, it was earlier in that game where I thought, oh no, this may not be good. But it's just there's been some issues here, but I just don't know if he's got the lift and the quickness and all those things. But if you could buy rest and buy the opposite of swelling at a store, I would go purchase some for D5 and make him drink it by the jug full right now.
Right. Get him in the cryo chamber,
yes.
Whatever it is, the advanced technology, Italian stem cell platelet therapy, whatever we got to get. HGA, no, never mind. That may be illegal. I don't know. I'm just throwing out. I'm spitballing. All right. As we look ahead, Chris, I mean, here we go. We're in the midst of the Big 12 schedule, so no shock that you feel like you've got big mountains to climb coming up, but you mentioned Texas Christian. They're coming to the LBK before you hit the road. So not only competitively, but given the fact that you're getting another home opportunity, you feel like this is an opportunity that's got to be taken advantage of, because whenever you look ahead and it's names like Houston, Baylor, Arizona, no big deal, right? And you will get one of those in the LBK, but you do not want to waste these opportunities. And unfortunately for Tech, the reality is right now that you have given away a couple of these home ones against varied opponents in Central Florida and Iowa State, but you don't want to do that anymore. So making sure we're back in a taking care of business frame of mind next time, right, when the Horned Frogs are on the court. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's calling the first touchdown, MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field throughout the game, and the app is super easy to navigate. And knowing that you can place only a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started today. Bet only $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59.
You've got, I think you've got Arizona State here. You've got Colorado here. You've got West Virginia here, which, the wheels are kind of starting to fall off West Virginia. And then you've obviously got TCU. These are the scariest games you've got, and they're the ones that are going to ultimately decide how this thing goes for you. And there's some tough road ones left to go. But if you win the ones you're supposed to, and that's what's tricky, man. But they go to Orlando and lose 85-58. Do you think they're coming in here reeling and all that? Well, keep in mind, man, a week ago yesterday, they went into Waco, which the Red Raiders have struggled mightily in recent years, just going to Waco and being competitive, much less winning. But TCU went into Waco a week ago yesterday, and they got a win. They beat Baylor. And so it's just, if you show up half stepping, man, you're just asking for it. And you're right. You've already kind of done that the one time versus UCF. I can't really fault you for the Iowa State game, although you kind of wonder, what could have been. But you've gotten so many of these road wins that you're thinking like, well, maybe that has evened it out a bit, which is why the computers like you so much, because you've won away from home so much, which have equaled quad one wins and things like that. But TCU will be much younger, and we'll talk about them as we get closer to that. But they're much younger than a year ago, but they've got a little more firepower than what Oklahoma State had. That's the thing about Oklahoma State yesterday, is that they were going to have to win the game. Oklahoma State averages 18 made free throws a game. That's first in the Big 12. And their Dave Hunsaker does a phenomenal job calling Cowboy games and all that has for years on the football and basketball side. He kind of indicated before the broadcast, he's like, the number has to be 40 on points off of turnovers and made free throws. That number has to equal 40 or more. And they didn't really get close to it, but that's how they had to manufacture offense. TCU, on the other hand, they've got guys that can shoot, they can score, maybe not necessarily with you, and then you're dealing with a 6 o'clock tip, which is a bit scary. It's just not conducive for the best possible environment. But you just, you gotta keep taking care of business at home, man. You just do, because you're right. Guys, we'll just, we'll go win on the road. Well, yeah. Houston and Tucson are staring at you in the face, and I don't want to say as much as that if you go win in Houston, I'll walk home or anything like crazy like that. However, that will take a monumental effort to go win in Houston. They've won 31 straight, which is the longest winning streak in the country, and the referee forgets to blow his whistle and all that. So, yeah, you just need to take advantage of these home opportunities. Even if it's non-sexy, even if it's a weird tip time, even if you're heavily favored, whatever, you've better figure out a way to show up with an edge and all that. And you may not necessarily be healthy coming into this one either, depending on Darrion Williams. So we'll see.
Yeah, and one of these that you're about to face on the road, you already hurt their feelings.
Yeah, so
Arizona's already mad at you.
That's right. They've got revenge on the. Keep in mind, that's what's crazy.
Margin in Lubbock. That's
what's crazy about this league, is that you start looking at it all, and I mean, you thumped Arizona by 16. Okay, well then they go to Stillwater, and I think Arizona wins by 21-ish, somewhere around in there. I mean, they get up and they just kind of extend it, and it was just a non-competitive game toward the end. And then Oklahoma State comes to you, so it's just kind of this three-way dance that you just had with these two teams.
Yeah.
And then Oklahoma State comes to Lubbock, and then it's the most competitive of all three of the games, which doesn't make any sense on paper based on the other two scores. So that's just but it's all about matchups. It's when you catch people and all those things. But that's the beauty of this thing, and it's just that's the beauty of your league, is that night in and night out, it's extremely competitive. And Coach Lutz does a good job with that group. So they will get better. You will see these guys again in about 2 or 3 weeks in Stillwater on a Saturday. And I bet they'll be a bit better version of themselves than we just saw. But you're right, man. You've got a TCU team that'll kind of come in a bit desperate after losing one to Kansas at home and then going to Orlando and all that. But, hey, man, you're 6-2. Just try to figure out a way by any means necessary to get to 7-2 before you got to go to H-Town and deal with that whole monster.
Yeah, you got a little wind in your sails right now. So hopefully you'll keep that going in the right direction. Next time around, of course, we'll get closer to that ball game and set the table for Red Raiders and Horned Frogs coming up this week. Chris, appreciate the time as always, man. Great to kick off a week talking about a win. Enjoyed it, and we'll see you for the next one.
You big sailor? You ever sail?
I've been on a sailboat, and you know me, big sailor.
Yeah,
That's what it says. That's what my face says, and just my whole aura.
Me neither. I just
I
envisioned
have once.
sailing. I envisioned sailing that movie, like Perfect Storm, where
Yeah.
the one guy and his daughter and his wife or whatever, and they're sailing and they have to be rescued because it's just like it was a total it turned upside
I'd be
down.
on more of like a Spalding Judge Schmelz rig for sure. Like,
yeah, that's right. So anyway,
shout out to the sailors though. Looks like a wild ride.
I would agree. I feel like
sailing. I mean,
I'm
that
not
looks
in
intense.
Dennis. Was it Dennis Conner? Wasn't he like the
Yes, of course.
competitive? I think that was his name. You're just
shout
going to
out to
agree with
Dennis
whatever
Conner.
I say.
There's nobody out there that doesn't know immediately Dennis Conner when they think competitive sailing.
I could totally have been wrong with that name, but that's what's in the back of my brain. Sailing scares me because I'm not in control. You're just like, okay, you can only control what Mother Nature's sending your way. And you just hope that you just hope you take it the right way when she blows the air. So, anyways, we'll hope that the ship is sailing correctly come Wednesday night. We'll talk about it more when we resume. But enjoy the beginning of your week, people. 6-2, man, 4th place all by yourself. I think that is, and that's good stuff here in the Big 12. 16-team league, you're in 4th, and we'll see if we can keep it headed in the right direction. And so we're sailing. Yeah,
that's right.
Sailing takes me away, or I think was that Christopher Cross. I know,
at just the right moment, and he runs the gamut. You gotta love it.
There we go. All right, keep hope alive, people. I will end it there and stop rambling on.
Well, may the spirit of Dennis Carlson be the wind beneath our wings.
It was Connor.
And him too. May the spirit of Dennis Conner be the wind beneath our wings as we all set forth attacking a new week and looking for another win. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks for being out there. Make sure you get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And shout out to the everydayers and, of course, the Matador Mob. Hit the show notes to find a link to your free 14-day trial. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. Sailing conversation, Christopher Cross conversation, whatever it might be. You never know inside the Matador Mob what'll pop up. Continue that conversation there now. I'm expecting a text for Chris regarding sailing for sure. Don't let me down. Looking for that later on. All right. Thanks for the time as always. Chris, I'm Casey, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.